Feminine Roadmappers. Welcome back to Feminine Roadmap Podcast, the podcast that helps you navigate the challenges and the changes of midlife and to empower you to live a more vibrant second half. Today, you are joining us on YouTube. Please remember to click the subscribe button and the bell so you don't miss any of these amazing conversations with my guests. If you are on a podcast platform, please remember to subscribe, rate, and share this conversation. Today, we are going to be talking about how most of us live in emotional debt and we don't even realize it. Once we become aware, though, there are things we can do to gain emotional wealth. And my guest today is bringing strategies to us to gain that emotional wealth. My guest today is Dr. Katie Nall. She is a two-time TEDx speaker. She's a mathematician. She promotes emotional wealth, and one of her greatest tools is she is a master trainer in emotional freedom techniques. Katie, thank you so much for being with me today.
Gina, it's my honor and pleasure to be on this amazing podcast. Thank you for the invitation.
My pleasure. So today I have you on because, we talk about midlife as a time of transition and change, and a lot of people come to it a little tired, a little unsure of what's coming next. It's not all negative, but there's so many decisions that need to be made at this season in our life. And I really thought about your topic of emotional wealth and the EFT tools that you use and knowing them myself. I thought what a fantastic resource you would be to talk to my audience and me, of course, about how to go from that emotional debt to that emotional wealth. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to this particular message?
Gina, most of my life, I focused on my financials. And for the majority of my life, I lived in financial poverty. From my childhood, when purchases were made on layaway, because I was too young, and at that time, without a male relative to sign off on credit cards, the only thing I could do was layaway. Even the material for my high school prom dress, not the dress itself, but the material, the thread, the pattern, the zipper, the buttons, they were all put on layaway with the hopes that I could pay it off in time to sew my prom dress. My life was primarily lived as a debtor. And it wasn't until I discovered and became practicer of emotional wealth that my financial wealth began to be affected and then increase. I never thought the two of them would be connected. In fact, I didn't even know what emotional wealth was. At a young age, though, I knew that I wanted more financially. Specifically, I wanted and needed financial stability. Gina, I was a young, enterprising, and enthusiastic person. I tried all kinds of ways of making money. I babysat, I collected soda bottles from the neighbors and sold them for a nickel at the store, sold lemonade at the lawn. I even wrote plays and drugged my brother and sister into the plays, sold the tickets to all the neighbors, gave away free, heavily salted popcorn, and then sold them the lemonade for $0.25. And still financial and emotional wealth did not come to me. And then over the years, the words budget, right, came up. We've all heard of that, right? When I heard it, it seemed really depressing because when I looked at my expense column and my income column, that expense column was always longer and larger than that little tiny income column. Those darn layaways. And it appeared all I had to do was to make more money. That's all I thought. Well, to make more money, I decided that education was my way into financial stability and maybe even financial wealth. Other families with options, read money, had more education than my single parent mother. So I focused on getting as much education as I could. In my senior year in high school, I was 18 years old, and I'd heard someplace that if you list what you want on your dreams, that they're going to have a greater chance of being accomplished. So I wrote, when I turn 25, I'm going to have 5 things. 1, I'm going to earn my PhD. Gina, I didn't know what a PhD was. I just had heard that that was the highest level of education I could get, right? Second thing was I was going to buy a home. And I remember writing in parentheses, I didn't care if it had furniture or not. The third thing was I was going to buy and pay for a car, right? It was going to be important for me to not go anything on credit. Cannot remember what the fourth thing was. And the fifth thing, at the age of 25, I was then going to begin dating.
Because you were too busy, right?
Yes. So let me tell you why I came up with these. My first goal was because I knew education was going to get me out of my poverty. The second goal, once you know that growing up, we moved a lot. I attended 12 different schools in 5 different states growing up. So the idea of having my own home, can you see where that was critical? And buying and paying off the car, I didn't want any more layaway. Now, the fourth item, I couldn't remember. I know it didn't have anything about marriage or children because that was not on my goal list. And then they began dating. Well, let me tell you what really happened, Gina, when I was 25. By the time I was 25, I was working on my master's degree in statistics and computer science. So I kind of was like, okay, that's partial credit on goal number 1. I wasn't buying a home, but I was a manager for an apartment complex, so I didn't have to pay rent. So I was like, oh, I'll give myself a fraction of credit. And I was driving a brand new, right off the lot, fire red 1973 sports car TR6, and it was bought and paid for and fun to drive. Just sold it after having it 45 years, as a matter of fact. And then there was number 5, that begin dating one. Oh, Gina, as it turned out, when I was 25, I'd been married 5 years and was pregnant with my first. Neither one of those were on my list. Turns out my husband had a list too, and his was a little more stronger than mine. So how does that lead me into emotional wealth? Well, like financial wealth, emotional wealth implies that I have more assets than liabilities, with a sufficient flow to cover day-to-day events and those pesky emergencies, just like our financial piece, right? So when you have, what is an emotional asset and what's an emotional liability? Well, an emotional asset belongs to you and pays dividends. So what is yours that constantly rewards you? For me, it's my family. You know, I know this is not true for everyone, which makes my family even more dear to me. You may have a deep faith that provides emotional assets and rewards you constantly. Some people will list material items like their home or the car, or, you know, what they've accumulated. You have to ask, does that reward you constantly? I did my education was the other thing that rewards me, and it pays dividends constantly. You know, Gina, I know we talk about women in the midlife. I was in my mid-50s when I decided to go back and earn my PhD in math education. And it was at that time that I ran into the 2010 Nick Ortner's 10-day summit. And you're nodding your head, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. It's the Tapping Summit. And I encourage everyone who's listening, I think it's in February every year, he still has it. It's a great introduction to tapping. I was actually working on my dissertation, and I wanted to help students who had that fear, that anxiety about math and test taking. So I did all my research. I looked everywhere, right and left everywhere. I read all the journals. And do you know what was out there to help students with math and test taking? Nothing. Nothing. I had students, at the time I was working at the college, and at the college, I would have a student come in and say, I only have 1 class left to register. And I'm like, well, what are you doing here? Let's get you registered. I said, well, what's the class? Gina, the color would rise in their face, that they would have water coming off their palms that could water my plants. Some of them you could see were visibly getting sick. I'm like, well, what is it? I'd get on my computer, look it up. I'm like, oh, you saved the best for last. It's a math class. Gina, they did not feel that way. That's why they were in my office. They're like asking, how can I get out of this class? I'm like, no, this is going to be a great class. This is going to teach you critical thinking skills. It's so much more than formulas. I mean, it's a fabulous, fabulous class. So I believe. However, I had a room full of students that were petrified to the point where they couldn't even register. That's when I ran into Nick Ortner's Tapping Summit. And in the 10-day Tapping Summit in the year 2010, they talked about releasing, I call it dissolving waffles, dissolving worries, anxiety, fear, frustration, lethargy, exhaustion, and stress. And what they were talking about was dissolving waffles in finances, dissolving waffles in relationships, in addictions, in weight loss, all these things. Nobody mentioned math. Nobody mentioned tests. I had no idea if it was going to work or not, but I had a room of desperate clients. Gina, you and I know desperate clients are the best, right? Because they will try anything. So I paraded my students one by one in my office. I'm like, okay, let's just try this. And I don't have any idea what I'm doing. I bought the book, I bought the DVD, and I tried it out. And I was like, ah. And then I waited. And after a while, one by one, they started coming back. I'm not sure, they said, but I think I'm passing my math class. You are? Gina, I wasn't sure who was more surprised, them or me. I'm like, I can't believe this. Because I value education and because I didn't really feel confident in what I was doing, I thought I better go get training. And it turned out I had no idea what I was doing. So I went back and I got training in level 1, level 2, level 3, quantum, which is past lives. That's a whole interesting thing. Picture tapping, supervisor, mentor, and now I'm a master trainer so I can train others. Once I found out about this and how amazing this is and how I can contribute to emotional wealth, all I want to do is train others in it. So now that's what I do. I obviously I have clients I see one-on-one, but I love, love, love training others so that it can help them dissolve their waffles. So after all of that, Gina, what would you think about trying it out?
Well, since I have practiced it in the past, I am, of course, excited to do it. What would you like me to do?
So I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and then I'll lead you and hopefully your audience. I will say that if you're driving, don't do this right now, but rewind, come back to this. You can listen, but just don't do this. And so, so we'll get started. So the first question, Gina, is in the last 24 to 48 hours, have you had anything that's caused you waffles, worries, anxiety, fear, frustration, lethargy, exhaustion, or stress?
That is such a good question, Katie. In the last 24 to 48 hours, worry, anxiety, frustration. That's a great question. I know you gave this to me ahead of time, but give me a second.
No, it's great. If you can't think of anything, that's fabulous. Now, while you're thinking, I'll explain to your listening audience that waffles are what I would call emotional liabilities. They're the things that take away from our emotional assets. And learning how to control those waffles is going to increase your emotional wealth. Tapping is but one of many things that you can do. A lot of people do meditation or walking outside. What I love about tapping is that in the last almost 50 years since it's been developed, there are clinical studies that are done all over the world that are showing its incredible effectiveness. Yeah. Did you come up with something?
All right, let's see. If I'm in a reinvention phase after caregiving for my mother-in-law, I still do a lot for my mom. So I set aside what I was building for 3.5 years. So what I guess comes to mind at the moment that would cause me a certain amount of stress is which direction to go.
Okay, that's a great one.
Yeah.
So when was the last time that you sat and it hit you, which direction am I supposed to go in?
Well, I've been sitting in that for a good year now.
Okay,
Year and a half.
But what was the last time? Like, was it this morning, yesterday? When was it that you?
Well, you brought it up this morning, so technically, yes, this morning.
Okay, so this morning.
Yeah, so yesterday as well. You brought it up. It came up as the point. So yesterday would be the most recent before today.
Okay, so yesterday. And when you think about that, you're wondering which direction to go. What emotion does that bring up in you?
Well, I mean, if I could give a little story to it, I have a strong desire to walk in my purpose. I have a strong desire to serve my family and the world at the same time. So there's a feeling of, I need to get this decision made. Like I need to get moving.
Yeah.
All this standing in the hallway can really start to get to me.
And when you think about standing in the hallway, what emotion does that bring up?
In the past, I have felt frustrated.
How do you feel right now in this moment?
I would think frustration is still a fair emotion because I've taken a lot of action. Things take longer than you expect them to.
Hate that part.
But, as a coach myself, I'm well aware of these processes and I've helped so many people. But yet when it comes to myself, sometimes it's more difficult to get the clarity that I help other people get. So it is frustrating.
Yeah. And Gina, from the top of your head to the bottom of your toes, right now, when you think about that frustration and trying to decide which direction to go in, where is it in your body? Where do you feel that in your body?
That's a great question. I use this too. That's so funny. I'm like, should apply this to myself. Where do I feel it in my body? I would say there's somewhat of a heaviness in my torso.
Heaviness in your torso. Okay, that sounds great.
Yeah.
And from 0 to 10, where 0 is like, it's no big deal. It's going to come clear to me. And 10 is the heaviest it's ever felt. What number would you give it?
You mean the figuring out which is my next best step?
The heaviness.
Oh,
in your
the heaviness. At the moment, it physically feels like around a 6 or a 7.
6 or 7. Okay. And is this a true statement? Right here, right now, I feel safe.
Yes.
Okay. And for the listening audience, if that's not a true statement, here are some alternatives you can use when we repeat it. You can say, right here, right now, I accept the way I feel. Right here, right now, I'm okay. Anything along those lines that is a reassuring statement. The last question is, I'm going to, first of all, just for your listening audience, I'm going to review the points that we're going to actually tap on our bodies. And then I'm going to have you repeat phrases after me. When I ask you to repeat words and phrases, would you do me a big favor and listen to them? And if those aren't your words or your phrases, would you repeat them back in your own words so that I make sure that everything I have you repeat is true for you?
Yes. We're looking for alignment in our words and our emotions. Yes.
Okay. Great.
Got it.
So first of all, I'm going to go over the parts of the body that we're going to tap on, and then we'll add the words. All right. Okay. So have one palm facing your hand, and it doesn't matter which palm it is. It doesn't matter. And then with your other hand, take 4 fingers and tap on the area between your wrist and your little finger. So you're going to tap right there. And when we tap on that, Gina, we're going to have 3 sentences that we'll repeat there. And then we're going to go from there to the top of your head, right on the crown of your head. You can use your right hand, your left hand, or both hands. It doesn't matter, whatever feels the most comfortable. From there, I'm warning you, I'm coming in for a close-up. We're going to go above the nose on the edge of the eyebrow. Again, you can use one hand or the other hand or both. It doesn't matter. And then from there, we're going to go on the temple between the edge of the eye and the hairline. Again, either right hand or left hand or both. It doesn't matter. And then the next spot, Gina, we're going to go is where I keep all my bags for a quick getaway. And that's under the eyes.
If only this was the solution to eye bags, my friend. Can we tap away our eye bags? Let's figure this out.
I know. I've had these all my life, and it does have to do with your liver. Under your eye, and then the next spot is under your nose, above your lip. You're going to tap right there. And then from under your lip, we're going to go, or over your lip, we're going to go under your lip, above your chin. We're going to tap right there. And then I have my clients cross their wrist with their palms facing them and tap right on their collarbone. And of course, they're still breathing while they're doing this because we want them to finish this whole thing. And the last spot, Gina, is going to be about 4 inches under our arms on our ribs. And I give my ribs a good thumping. And again, you can use one hand or the other, or give yourself a hug. Or if you prefer, you can come in from the side, whichever way works the best for you. So those are all the points that we're going to work on. So now we're going to add your individual issue. Now, for those in the listening audience, I would encourage you to tap along. There's something called borrowing benefits. You may or may not have the same issue. And if you do or do not, you may actually feel an energy shift yourself. If you do, put something in the comments. I know Gina would love to hear about it. So again, we'll start with a palm facing us, and we'll tap on the side with 4 fingers, and we'll say, even though I don't know what direction to go in.
I don't know what direction to go in.
I want to serve my family and the world.
I want to serve my family and the world.
And I've been working on this for 3.5 years.
I've been working on this for 7 years.
Oh, 7 years. Okay. And I feel like I'm in the hallway.
And I feel like I'm back in the hallway.
Back in the hallway. And I feel this frustration.
And I feel this frustration.
And heaviness in my torso.
And heaviness in my torso.
Right here, right now, I feel safe anyway.
Right here, right now, I feel safe anyway.
And we're going to repeat versions of that 2 more times. Even though I'm standing in the hallway again.
Standing in the hallway again.
It's been 7 years.
It's been 7 years.
And I'm just trying to figure out which way to go.
Just trying to figure out which way to go.
And I feel this heaviness and frustration in my torso.
And I feel this heaviness and frustration in my torso.
Right here, right now, I feel safe anyway.
Right here, right now, I feel safe anyway.
Last time, even though I have this frustration and heaviness in my torso.
I have this frustration and heaviness in my torso.
Just thinking about how it was just yesterday.
Just thinking about how it was just yesterday.
I was wondering which direction to go in.
I was wondering which direction to go in.
I mean, it's been 7 years and I'm still in the hallway.
I mean, it's been 7 years and I'm still in the hallway.
Right here, right now, I feel safe anyway.
Right here, right now, I feel safe anyway.
And then on the top of your head, we're going to tap and say frustration and heaviness in my torso.
Frustration and heaviness in my torso.
Above your nose, on the edge of your eyebrow, frustration and heaviness in my torso.
Frustration and heaviness in my torso.
On the side of the eye, frustration and heaviness in my torso.
Frustration and heaviness in my torso.
Under your eyes, frustration and heaviness in my torso.
Frustration and heaviness in my torso.
Under the nose, this frustration and heaviness is in my torso.
This frustration and heaviness is in my torso.
Under the lips, my torso feels all this heaviness and frustration.
My torso feels all this heaviness and frustration.
And then cross your wrist on your collarbone. All this heaviness and frustration in my torso.
All this heaviness and frustration in my torso.
And then under your arms, this heaviness and frustration in my torso.
This heaviness and frustration in my torso.
And then Gina, I have my clients put their hands on their shoulders, and we're gonna rub down our shoulders to our elbows and blow out our air like a cartoon character. It looks like this. Good job.
Thanks. I'm a part-time cartoon character.
Oh, okay. Take a sip of water if you have one. And then I'm going to ask you, when you think about yesterday, when you were wondering about what direction you're going in, the frustration from 0 to 10, where is it now, Gina?
I would say it's around between a 4 and a 5.
And as you repeat that, so you can watch the video again, as you repeat that a couple more times, it will go down to 0. Clinical studies have shown that doing tapping, emotional freedom technique, or EFT, is as effective as something called EMDR, eye movement desensitization reprogramming. The difference is with EMDR, you have to be sitting in front of a trained therapist, in case you have an abreaction. And with tapping, you can have a mathematician help you, or you can do it yourself. And that's what I love about it. It's non-addictive, non-invasive, and it can be self-administered. It's faster and sometimes can go deeper when you're working with a certified practitioner. So how's it feel?
It feels fantastic. I do, because I'm familiar with it and have known about it for several years. I would love to have you kind of break down just real briefly what it is doing. Because somebody might think it's, either uncomfortable or it doesn't make sense. So kind of give us a brief overview of what tapping is doing, why the points you're choosing are important.
So the 8 points that we have were developed by Gary Craig when he was watching other people working with something called thought field therapy. Those specific points are the ends of what traditional Chinese medicine called meridians, or energy pathways. The 8 points that we tap on are the end points of 96 to 98% of those pathways. Traditional Chinese medicine believes that those meridians are energy pathways, and that when energy is flowing, we're healthy. And that when there's a blockage, then that's when we have issues. The whole idea of the tapping is meant to create the energy flow. I'm also a Qigong instructor, and in Qigong, one of the exercises we do is tapping just all over the body. We tap all over the body. Modern science has shown that actually tapping on a cell creates an electrical charge. It's called piezoelectric. That electrical charge can create a healthier cell. They have found that when they get the charge of each individual cell, the higher the electrical charge, the healthier the cell. So just the effect of tapping itself can improve physically your cells.
That's amazing. And, as we talk about this idea of flow, energy, just in terms of our mental and emotional wealth and health, I can see how this particular tool is really helpful when you talk about emotional wealth. So you briefly touched on that as, the assets in our lives, the things that bring us joy and energy throughout the day. So let's talk a little bit more about emotional wealth and how people can maybe identify it, maybe how they can apply this principle to their lives.
Gina, it's interesting because we all have emotional bank accounts. We all have days where by the end of the day, we are wiped out. Yes. I know myself, when I was working full-time, for a company, not for myself, by the end of the day, because I wanted to do such a good job, right? That's a good thing. I'd do such a good job that I'd come home and I'll use the word spent. I was emotionally spent. And then when a husband, children, volunteer, everything else would pull on me, I'd just shut down because there was nothing left to give. Some of your audience members may have felt the same way. And that's when we go into emotional debt. Sometimes when we feel like we have to help somebody, we pour from our own cup and until we are empty. And instead, if we would just fill ourselves up first, like the airlines, right? Put your oxygen down first. Fill yourself up first so that it overflows to help people. So that, for instance, if knowing what I know now, working full time, before I'd come home, I would stop and do what I needed to do to bring my emotional wealth back up. What would that be? Well, it could be meditation. I would probably use tapping because I know the effectiveness of it. Maybe it's an ice cream cone. I don't know.
Ice cream, yes.
Chocolate? Yeah.
Yeah.
But it would be something. So until you recognize the fact that you are in emotional debt, you can't build emotional wealth. It's just like finances, right? If you don't know where your finances are, people say, well, how much money you owe? And you go, I don't know. I just know all the credit cards are maxed out. Well, that's interesting. But what is the amount? I don't even want to know. It's just overwhelming. And that's the way we are about our emotions too, right? We're caregivers, right? And as caregivers, we get emotionally spent. And if we don't take time for ourselves before we are caregivers, before we're offering for others, we will deplete our emotional wealth. And then we have to build it back up. And sometimes it's harder, if you're in tremendous financial debt, getting out of debt is harder than having a little bit of resources and building. And it's the same way with emotions. We have to take care of ourselves. We have to do self-care. We have to put it in our calendars so that, I'm not being selfish when I schedule time for me. I'm not being selfish when I schedule a walk in the park. I'm not being selfish when I decide to book a massage. I'm not being selfish. I have to take care of me. I'm depositing in my own emotional wealth. And then there's that sense of community. Clinical studies have shown that people who have lots of friends, not acquaintances, but you think about, I just called somebody earlier today and they said, oh, I have to wait because I had to call road service because my battery's dead. I'd never met this person in my life, but the first thing I said was, can I come over and charge it? Now, who can you call if you were in that situation? Those are your friends, right? And if you don't have those friends, be one for someone else, right? Those are all the things that can build up that emotional wealth. Somebody that you could call and talk to, maybe as you're coming from your full-time job before you hit, everybody making demands on you. I just gotta release. I've got to talk. I've got to do it. Sometimes I'll just pull up my phone and go into voice memos and just rant there, right? And hope to God nobody hears it.
That's a great strategy. Oral processing. It's something that my personality needs. Like that's my primary form of coping, pressing into and through. My youngest daughter has stepped into a new position at work, and my oldest, I have two daughters, is in the process of building a business. And so there's a lot of transition in our home. And I'm aware of, keeping a finger on the pulse of the emotional state of those in my family, because how you can see, it's almost like there's an invisible little line of color, and you're just watching that battery level drop, when someone so well. And so what are some strategies that you encourage people to either, maybe first talk about what are some clues that maybe you're running a little bit in debt? Because sometimes people, it's kind of like if somebody's used to chaos in their life, the chaos feels normal.
Right.
They don't have a baseline that's not chaotic. So let's say normal emotional wealth, I know can be a little bit different for everybody, but kind of a baseline for what we could aim for. Can you kind of help guide people toward what that would look like? Look
at your friends. That's the first thing I would suggest. Who are you hanging around with? Are you with people that have a lot of drama, a lot of trauma all the time? You're probably running on emotional debt all the time. So that's the number one thing. Look at your friends. Number two, how much time during the day do you have where you sit in complete silence? If you say, I can't, there's an old adage that I used in my book, Shower Blessings, Finding Meditation Time for Those Who Are Busy. And that's if you're stressed, you should always meditate for at least a half hour a day. If you don't have time to meditate for a half hour a day, then you should meditate for an hour a day.
Increase the application.
Increase the application. So those are big tips right there. The other thing is, are you physically healthy? You know, there's study after study, Gina, that talks about how the close connection of your emotional health and your physical health. And if you're finding yourself that you're constantly ill, stop and look and see, what's my emotional status right now? Are my assets greater than my liabilities? Do I have more expenses than I do have income? So many people are in that sandwich generation where they have young children and they're caregivers for parents. And they are the people that really, really, really need to take care of themselves. I have a friend who has written books on tips to do, for caregivers. And it's basically take time for yourself, because you cannot give what you do not have.
I can hear. I don't have time. There's so much I need to get done. Like last night, I stayed up later than I should have, if you're going to talk about getting the adequate amount of rest. But it's because I needed to sit down and paint. Like I needed to make that happen for me, right? And so I think sometimes, if I might step out on a limb a little bit, I think it can feel like sacrifice. It may be maybe both and isn't part of our life today. It's either or. Okay, maybe I stay up a half an hour longer, but really fully be present in that 30 minutes of reading, writing, doing a crossword puzzle, whatever it is, right? So that we can give ourselves a respite. It's interesting when we're doing something that brings us joy, not that serving our family doesn't bring us joy, but something for us, just simply for us, that brings us joy. It is like a battery charge. Yeah. Once we allow it and don't resist it and feel guilty. Right? I mean, this is a struggle that we have as women in our roles as serving. And I think we're nurturers by nature. And maybe we need to, another guest of mine said something to the effect of, making room for yourself. You make room for all these other things in your life. Just make some room for yourself. You don't have to take a whole day, but make some room.
And one of the ways you can make some room is stop being who I was for years, which is Superwoman. I can do everything and all things, but should I? No.
It's not a matter of ability. It's a matter of, is this really the best way to live my life?
Delegate, and don't assume responsibilities. Don't assume other people's problems. Let people, living a non-judgmental life can make your life so much easier. And I say that knowing that is a non-trivial thing to lean into. But yeah, and as it turns out, if somebody comes to my house and finds out that my baseboards are dusty, oh, well, they aren't somebody that really wanted to speak with me anyway. Doesn't bother me in the least.
It's interesting. We have carried a lot of expectation on our shoulders, haven't we?
Yeah.
And there comes a point where we're like, do I really care?
And how important is this?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So now when people feel that sense of, maybe they feel the pull of maybe that's selfish, or maybe I don't have the time, or I don't have the finances, I don't have the time, I don't have the energy. I mean, that's what you're talking about, right? When you recognize that you don't have X, Y, and Z, that's your neon sign saying you're in emotional debt.
Yeah, exactly. And as it turns out, all of those reasons are things that can be addressed. And you can just stop and think, what if I had a friend that I could tell that was living in emotional debt, and that friend said all those things to me, what would I say to that friend? So here's an idea. You could be your own best friend.
Yeah.
And what would you say to them? And you would tell them to make time for themselves because it's important. And you'd say that without thinking that it's about you.
Isn't that true? It's a shift in perspective, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's a powerful thought. You know, I think we hear these things, but in this moment, I feel compelled to say, if you're hearing this, it's for you.
Yeah.
Don't think of the friend who needs to hear this, although please share the podcast.
Sure.
But what nugget is here that, you know, Katie is sharing?
And it's also for Katie.
Yes.
And it's for Gina.
Absolutely. But we're here to have this conversation on purpose. So the person that it's passing, I want to encourage them to sit with this time and really give it some attention and think about, what is this here in my life for at this moment?
Yeah.
You know, this could be a God wink. This could be it's serendipitous that you're hearing this conversation. And when we think about being emotionally wealthy, I know we tend to think of an excess of resources with wealth.
Exactly.
So how would you say emotional wealthiness? I know it's different from person to person, but what's the best way to know you're getting there?
Gina, you've met that person, and I know you are that person, that when you come into a room, you just explode all of this goodness to others. You know, when you've met that person and you meet them for the first time and they grab your hand and they look into your eye and they say, you have no idea how excited I am to meet you. And you feel it, right?
Yeah.
That's when you have that emotional wealth that you can just pour out to others. Mm-hmm. That's when you talk to your kids, and instead of chastising for something, you see something wonderful like, gosh, that doesn't seem like you. Are you okay? So it's when you have that emotional wealth, that's how you just distribute it. It's like throwing out dollar bill, $50, $100 bills out to everyone of love and kindness.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, it is such a gift to others when we take care of ourselves, isn't it?
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
If we can turn the story around.
Yeah.
To the whole idea that what we do to nurture our health emotionally, physically, spiritually, psychologically, whether that's EFT, therapy, taking a nature walk, whatever, right? Yeah. You're putting money in the bank.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think we know it, Katie. I think we're aware of that. It's that practice. It's the application of this that it can be so challenging, I think, for us busy women.
Put it in your calendar.
Schedule a date with yourself.
Schedule 15 minutes a day for yourself. Mm-hmm. And, one of the things I say in my book is while you're in the shower, just stop and just focus on all the wonderful things you have. When I take a shower, the first thing I say is, I'm so happy that I have water. I'm so happy I have running water. I'm so delighted I have hot running water. And just kind of focusing on that. And then you can start thinking about other things like people in your life, or always give thanks for things that you wouldn't say you're thankful for. Like I had a car accident once, and the first thing I thought of is, okay, I got to say thanks. Not knowing that when an elderly lady, I live in Florida, an elderly lady pulled out in front of me, I couldn't stop. My front end was just completely shot. I went to pick it. I said, thank you right away, because that's what I do. And I went to pick it up after they had it in the shop for a while. And the repairman said, lady, you're really lucky. I said, yeah, I know. Nobody was hurt. And, I'm really glad. He said, no, lady, you were really lucky. Your front axle was ready to fall off. And if you hadn't had that accident and had it replaced, you could have been driving down the highway and that axle would have fallen off.
Oh, wow.
That's why it doesn't matter what happens. I always give thanks because I never know why it's happening or what incredible things are going to come from it.
Mm. And in my mind, I had a picture as you were talking that this is the kind of thing that is it's like a gate, right? We can shut the gate to the incoming blessings, or we can open it up and allow those blessings to come in whatever form they come. That gratitude is such a huge piece. I do gratitude in my journal every day.
Yeah.
And I've used video messaging with some friends, and we've started the practice of ending our videos with 3 things that we're grateful for.
Oh.
And it really actually adds to your emotional bank when other people share what they're grateful for too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Those of you who are active on social media, go ahead and share what's good.
Do me a favor and slowly go over waffles again. Worry,
Worries,
anxiety,
fear, frustration, lethargy, exhaustion, and stress. Gina, I came up with that because once I first discovered tapping, I wanted to tell everybody. So I'd go up to complete strangers in the street, grab them by the shoulders and say, I know you have a problem and I can fix it. That doesn't work. So I was like, okay, I got to regroup. So I'd go up to another stranger and say, I'm here to teach you emotional freedom technique. And again, that wasn't really successful. But once I can tell people, I can show them how to dissolve their waffles, then I can get their attention. I can explain what's going on. I can give them a very quick demo. Almost everybody, 98% of the people who have tapping sessions with me leave saying, I feel so much lighter. Now, you're the first person ever that I have talked to that admits that they had a heaviness. Usually people don't come in and say, I'm feeling so heavy. And it's probably because you're so aware of your body that you can say that. But for them to say that they feel lighter, I mean, isn't that emotional wealth?
Yeah.
So that's, I started thinking, I thought, well, I've been working on Zoom for 12 years with clients all over the world and helping people. And I thought, well, what do I help them with? And it was like, well, there's so many people are worried. Lots of people have anxiety. Let's see, there was some fears. And as I started thinking about it, I was like, oh, wait a minute, I have a word here.
You know
so
what?
That's how waffles came about.
I think that sometimes if you can identify, that's where the waffles, you can identify what resonates with you. It's a starting point. You don't have to have the right, perfect answer, right?
Right.
And like, for example, when I shared, I've been in this process for 7 years. I was building, I was making progress. I was finding those places that I could serve my community through leadership training and coaching. And when my father-in-law died suddenly and I took over my mother-in-law, that changed my life for a period of time.
Sure. Yeah.
And it put me back at the beginning. That's why I said 7 years. So even though I have been doing things and contributing, it's that sense of soul purpose. And I think why I'm sharing this is for a lot of us, we're so focused on, are you okay? Are you okay? Is this okay?
Right.
Can that be done? And we're constantly navigating our external world.
Right.
And what I hear you saying, Katie, is our external world is improved when we can navigate our internal world in a healthier way.
Have you, Gina, ever met somebody that's so involved in other people's lives that they're like a royal pain? and what you want to tell them is turn the mirror around and focus on yourself. Yeah, I'm one of those people. And so I have to, instead of giving advice to everyone else, I have to stop and look at myself and think, how can I improve myself? And if every one of us did that, how cool would that be? And when we see those people who it looks like they don't want to improve, we don't know what's actually going on. They may want to improve, but the situation doesn't allow them to improve. And so if we would just focus on ourselves and let everyone else do their thing, and as long as they don't hurt us or hurt anyone else,
Well, and sometimes I think as our light shines, it shines on those things, and
Right,
it will impact. I don't think
right,
we always can understand how we live our lives in, I'm sorry, how our lives that we live impacts the world around us. We have to think
right,
about that.
right.
So as we wrap up, because my goodness, our time has already passed. It's been so wonderful.
I said so much fun.
Yes, I think so too. What are three things that you would like people to anchor in? Because you've shared a very kind of broad overview of what you do and your mission and message of emotional wealth. What are three things you would love people to really take from this conversation?
So I'd love your listening audience to understand that stress is something that can be controlled, that stress can negatively impact your physical health,
Yeah,
and that they themselves can learn how to control their own waffles.
that's powerful. That is powerful. And so stress can be controlled. What are a couple of other ones?
Take time for themselves. If you don't take time for yourself, somebody else will take your time.
Right? Don't. What happens in a vacuum? Something fills it.
Yes, exactly. So you go right now, sit down. I mean, we're closing in on the end of a month. Next month, sit down and write your own time.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah.
And
And then lastly, I would encourage people to stick to their own business, take care of their own self, and manage their own emotional wealth. Don't worry about the rest of the world. When we take care of ourselves and our own emotional wealth, other people are watching, just like you said, Gina, and they will take care of themselves too. You can model that behavior.
mm, mm. Well, Katie, how can people find you and what you do?
So on all social media, I'm listed as Katie Nall, PhD. So that's KATIENALL, PhD. They can email me at hello@drnall.com, HELLO@DRNALL.com. And I'm going to challenge your listening audience to give me a call. Give me a call at area code 772-226-0167. I'd love to hear from the listening audience and find out what, if anything, I can do to help.
Awesome. Wonderful. Well, Katie, I want to thank you so much for bringing this wonderful message to my audience with the beauty and the energy that you brought it, and for taking the time out of your schedule to serve my audience in this way and introduce them to a tool that truly is life-changing. I enjoyed you and your energy and your message. It was such a joy to spend time with you today.
Gina, it is my pleasure and honor. Thank you so much. And I want to say I appreciate what you're doing and the light that you're spreading into the world. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. Friends, today I've been speaking with Dr. Katie Nall. You see her lovely face if you're on YouTube. She is a 2-time TEDx speaker, so head on over to YouTube, check her out. She's a mathematician, and she is an EFT master trainer. If you find yourself on the podcast, please head over to www.feminineroadmap.com/episode 287. I will have links to Katie there. If you are on YouTube, the links are below. Friends, thank you so much for being a part of this conversation. We encourage you to really identify what it is in your life that is contributing to your emotional wealth and what is draining your emotional wealth. And take the time to invest in yourself, because you are worth that time. And if you love your family and if you love your community, whatever it is that you do, the filling of your own cup, as Katie says, take the time to fill it up so that you're serving out of overflow, not out of the dredges that are left in the cup. We have all run ourselves completely dry. So friends, today, grab a cup of something wonderful, find a place to sit, think about those things that you heard today and what niggled in your spirit a little bit, and give it some space to bloom and grow. We thank you so much for being a part of this conversation today. I look forward to bringing more inspiring and powerful conversations to you in the weeks to come. Take care, my friends. Bye-bye.